Alright, lesson 19, origins, exploration of petroleum. Introduction. Petroleum method will deal with the refined petroleum product with a touch of jet fuel, gasoline, diesel, fuel, burner oil, lubricating oil. You will have to have the real reason for the concerning yourself with the problems involved with the finding, producing, refined crude oil. The numerous products that will be made. However, it is important that you realize the petroleum product is the end result of a long and involved process. For this reason, for approximately the examine the exploration production phase of the oil industry. Alright, formation of the petroleum reservoir, the reservoirs. Subsurface currents in order of the petroleum reservoir to form. There are three distinct subsurface occurrences. You must have the source of the bed of the petroleum originally formed, a porous permeable carrier with a reserve rock with suitable for the holding of the fluid, and allow the fluid to move with the will to discuss the move with the more detailed than the ACCP. A trapping mechanism seal the reservoir prevent the fluid from escaping the source of the bed of the origin of the oil. Discussing the source of the bed of the bed of the rich and organic material that discover the origin of oil to become the fate of the petroleum is for the source of the bed of the form of the original bed. Petroleum provoked the extent of the argument they throw inside the engineering cycle. As you have to define the solution of the petroleum problem has not been found to most widely accepted theory for the geologists, the petroleum engineers, and inorganic or organic. In organic theory, they attempt to explain the formation of hydrocarbons petroleum by assuming the chemical reaction among the water, carbon monoxide, the various inorganic substances, for example, the carbonates of the earth. Organic theory, on the other hand, assuming the hydrocarbons involved with the decomposition of the vegetable, animal organisms living during the previously geological age of the general scientific debate of the inorganic theory unattainable. Conversely, the organic is supported by much geological evidence. Porous and permeable media of the earth consider the potential liquid core of the virtuous shell as a crystalline crust. The earth crust is composed of the three main types of the rocks, classified according to the origin. Three types of the rocks. Ingenious is the form of the cold lava, the sedimentary of the rocks formed by the action of the wind, water, wave, the accumulated with the deposition of the minerals remaining with the animal from the deposit of the evaporating landlocked. Two of the chemical of the reaction. Sedimentary rocks are most common type of the form of the petroleum reservoir. Sedimentary rocks can be divided in two main classifications: elastic and carbonates. Alright, in classic sediments, with the component of the mainly broke with a worn particle of the pre-existing rocks or shelves of wearing, weathering, erosion, transportation. These rocks are evaluated as deposit the organic debris of the marine base and the disposition. Normally, successful layers, classic sedimentary reservoirs are characteristically sand and fine-grained silica. Carbonate reservoirs are characteristically limestone, dolomite, and the framework of the formation of the chemically precipitated seawater and/or removal of seawater living organisms of the fossil remains of these organisms found in the framework. The sediments undergo the various chemical processes they alter, restructure the original sediment. Metamorphic, the rocks are the ingenious sedimentary rocks which have been metamorphized, transformed into the extreme heat pressure. The porous and permeable rock. There are three general rock types. The significant importance of the formation of the petroleum reservoir: sandstone, limestone, dolomite formations. It is believed that the hydrocarbons generally move upward with the place of the formation, so of the air accumulation sites. Reservoir displacing seawater originally filled with a porous space of the sedimentary rock. The primary force causing the migration of the petroleum buoyancy and the capillary action. Potential reservoir rocks require the three basic properties: porosity, permeability, saturation. Porosity, the capacity of the rock to contain fluid. Porosity is normally expanded with the percent of the representative of the weight of the volume of the rock divided with the bulk volume of the porosity of any given the reservoir depends on the grain sorting, cementation of the grain of the angular roundness, the compaction of the packing. Prefers the configuration in which the grains are geometrically arranged, assuming the grains may be perfectly cylindrical in shape of the cubic grains, but the grains are stacked directly on top of each other. The cab have the maximum porosity of 47.6% of the grains given a grain with the same size with the cylindrical face of the rhombic packaging. Grains stacked in below hollow form or form other underlying grains. Porosity would be reduced to 25.9%. Source of the refers to the side of the grain. Well sorted reservoirs grains of uniform shape of the side of the pore sorted reservoirs have different grains, different sizes and shapes. These pore sorted reservoirs will have less porosity than well sorted. Cementation refers to the binding of the agent with the whole of the grains together. Well cemented reservoir with low porosity, porous sedimented reservoir, high porosity, singular round if the grain with the effect of the porosity due to the interlocking of subsequent filling of the voids of the void spaces. Compaction of the degree of the overlying pressure of the alter of the side of the shape of the reservoir rock, normally due to the time and the strength of the rock porosity behind. They hinder permeability. They define the ability of the reservoir to permit the flow of the passage of reservoir fluids. Fluid saturation of the rock, ratio of the volume fluid of the pores of the rock, total pore volume, fluid saturation expressed in percent of the pore volume of the air. Simple with water saturation 30% means 3 to 10. 3 out of the 10 the pore space is filled with water, oil, the gas found with the same types of the hydrocarbon. However, due to the gravity fluid Since segregated with the reservoir can be put into one of three classifications. The classification is known as the porosity, permeability, and laceration. Or the trapping mechanisms. Oil and gas lighter with the groundwater, with the permanate, with the porous rock flow, with the water table, with evident, with the upward movement with the petroleum must be restricted in order with the accumulation of the form of the natural barrier, with the trap of the mechanism, with the line with the petroleum reservoir to form. There are many types of the structural features of each of the result that continues favorable the accumulation of the hydrocarbon. The most common types. Common traps associated with the petroleum reservoir, anticlines, salt domes, and fault of the stratigraphic traps. In anticlinal structure of the roller actually can compromise the crust of the earth of the fold, the upward with the oil, the gas usually found in the crest of the anticlinal structure, the impervious gland, the cap of the rock, but there must be represented with the seal reservoir, prevent the escape of the gas into the higher layers. The cap of the rock is one form of the other, must represent all reservoir containing the oil and gas with the structure. The salt domes result in intrusion of large masses of the salt of the sediments where they are found. The salt that relieve the flow of the viscosity semi-solid, which subject to the high pressure, the intrusion inclusion create the upward pressure for the resulting doming overlying sedimentary rock. Within this type of the stack structure, oil accumulates for the upturned porous beds about submit with the flank of the salt core. Faulty region of the two more earth tectonic plate with meet with the plates slide against each other. They may form the trap of the lava of the petroleum reservoir to form the porous rock that is brought into the contact with the nervous layer of the D, the in stratigraphic trap that producing the formation graph that readily pinches out one of the reasons of another overlay with the impervious brackets of oil. As a result, the oil and gas and water can no longer migrate upward and is trapped. Searching for the petroleum. While any of the methods search for the petroleum include the geological, geophysical, the meaning of the major concern with the oil company exploration and study of the sedimentary strata with the producing the potential petroleum providence basin. The petroleum geologists study with the composition, texture, volatile, and thickness of the strata. The way that they relate to the one another that is a vertical succession, horizontal, lateral extent of the variability. On the top of the geologist must know the which way of the strata fold, the faulted disposition geological may understand the flow of the fluids may not take with the place of the rock. The most of the important rocks, of course, are known with the potential reservoir rock with the strata directly associated with them. Information field map that comes from the subsurface of the surface, the geological surveying determine the subsurface structure of the rocks based on the geological rock layers that express exposed rock the angles which the beds are formed. Subsurface the geological surveying obtained with the actual samples of the reservoir of rock obtained with the wells that are drilled with depth core, with sometimes mining records. Samples are to be decided under the microscope, comparing the samples with the different scope, place of the revealed lateral variability in texture, mineral composition, organic components, and fluid content with the reservoir rock. This can also examine the nature of overlying roof rock with the potential source of the bed. The aerial satellite photograph that can be used with the geologists to overlay the region with being stripped. The useful stethoscope, the aids of the geological determine whether to bank of the detailed study of the base on the laid of the land. Geophysical exploration method may come the preferred method of the defiled mapping with the cape can take several forms. Or seismic. Seismic method is most widely used. The method used to explode with the grave of the underground sound wave. The seismic graph that records the wave of the correlating time that takes place with the sound and travel of the ground. The geologists determine the subsurface structure for the underlying rock layer. The gravimetric with the gravimetric with the gravimeter measure for the variation of the gravity layer or its mass with the dense rock grave. The slightly heavier, greater than lighter rock. They give the geologists with a better understanding of the region of the subsurface. The magnetic method used the magnetometer for the measure for the magnetic field of the rock. So the geologists determine the general idea of structural formation of the region. All this information about the basin is put together with the three types of the diagrams, maps, graph, the section of the three-dimensional model of these. Each of the diagram portray with the manager of the physical relation with the rock, with the human, the fluid, rock fluid, with the sea, and the form of the exploration effort. The regardments must know they interpreted with the four-dimensional space frame, and they involved with the reconstruct the success of the event, with the gave, the rev, the say the day of the event, and include with the disposition, the compaction of the chain, the upon barrel, the deformations with the rock suffered. The ultimate aim is to understand the generation of the hydrocarbon in the basin, flow of fluids, the accumulation of oil of the gas arm, but the understanding of the geologists attempt to predict the existing undiscovered oil and gas pools. All right, petroleum production. Once a well has been driven complete with the man who dedicated the experiment with the engineering design, they reduce the product with the petroleum and remove the ground. There are two types of production: primary production and enhanced recover the primary protection. Primary protection coupled with the natural force exists for the reservoir formation to drive the petroleum into the well bore. There are three types of drives. Water drive, the drive is provided with the pressure water exerting the upward force of the oil zone. The reservoir with the water will push the oil down toward the producing well with the lower pressure of the well time, and the water will accompany with a large portion of the reservoir oil produced with the pressure exerted. The water will be depleted. Gas cap drive. The typical oil reservoir zone, reservoir rock above the oil zone, which contains the half of the gas-bearing zone, and the expend with the exert the down force of the oil-bearing zone to force the oil to production well. With time, it will become depleted. All right, your solution gas drive. The crude oil, a certain percentage of the gas solution, which is the result of the greater pressure for the end of the crude oil, naturally give the gas the relief of the oil, will expand with the force of the oil, the production of the principal is best illustrated taking the canvas, throw the shaking out, then opening of the carbon dioxide of the soda release. from the liquid and force with the soda out with the can. Enhanced recovery. The enhanced recovery consists of the two production, secondary and tertiary. The secondary recovery, when the natural force is consumed with the production, some of the outside force that must be added to the oil production continue under the category secondary recovery over the tube method of continuing the production. Water fluiding, move of the water, injected the formation of the select of the mid oil with the remove of the surrounding well until the water production of the oil producing well becomes the excess of the various parameters of the low ejection produced well to maintain the most efficient operation. Gas injection, the method of the gas injected the gas cap of the formation, maintain the pressure of the oil bearing zone with the maintain the pressure above the oil zone and producing continuation. Tetrarch recovery, the listing of the various tetrarch enhanced oil recovering technique that allows, including the most common method of practice and being the best gave the degree of these methods that currently studied. It has been greatly reduced the view of the low-cost barrel and crude, with which barely discovered thermal method and sounds of the use of miscible fluids. 1. In stew, the composition of the produce the energy burning some of the oil within the reservoir rock itself. The inject of the reservoir heavily lower than the well and ignite the oil with the result of the combination of the gas steam and the hot water move the oil from the injection well to the producing well. Steam stimulation, hot and puff, thermal method each of the well with above the injection of the production, high pressure for the steam and injected directly with the production zone with the stability is a week, and after injection the reservoir all around the week of the also seek the additional day for the as in after the soak period of the well is brought with the production, recover the heat of thinner oil with the hot water, steam flooding either to separate the injection well, the production well, to improve the bowl with the rates of the production amount of the oil with the ultimately reproduce heat, the inject with the steam, the reduce the viscosity of the oil, inject the fluid drives oil through the injection well, the production well, the miscible displacement, miscible nature of the fluids refer to the ability of certain fluids to mix together. Fluids are miscible with the oil, though as much of them effectively with the way water and gas to drive the displacing oil with the region of the contact hydrocarbons, carbon dioxide, nitrogen has shown most prominents still have the required extensive research field testing. RH, reserve stimulation method. All the recovery methods have the commonly exhausted. The petroleum engineer can attempt to recover the remaining oil with the flavor through the stimulation. The technique of the stimulation is altering of the petroleum reservoirs so that the oils are allowed to move freely. Two means of the stimulation are acid consisting of the pumping of anywhere from 550 and 2,000 of the gallons of the acid down into the well. Acid trouble down the tubing enter of the perforation contact with the information. Continue to pump through the force of the acid formation from the edges of the channel. The channels are provided with a formation oil that enter the wall through perforations. Hydraulic fracturing analysis involved with the purpose of pumping of the special band with the fluid down into the formation of the great pressure pump that continues with this formation that laterally cracks open the propellants and the sand, walnuts, helm, aluminum pellets mixed with the fracturing fluid. This enters the fracture of the formation, pumping and stopping the pressure that's allowed to dissipate. The propellants hold and prop the fractures open and allow the passage for oil. And that was lesson 19. Alright, lesson 20, pumping, petroleum refining and process.